Get out.
She's looking dignified, he's looking goofy.
Yes, absolutely. Well, that's the way.
Okay, as I was saying, we'll get into our readers, Dan Roberts and Daniel Barth. Dan's going to read first, yeah. So he was born in Louisville, Kentucky. He still has that kind of that southern, real slow, kind of real nonchalant type of a drawl to a certain extent, but he's been Californicized. I really like Dan's work in that it kind of brings us down into what I was saying earlier about homegrown, community-based poetry, which to me, I used to have these heroes when I was young. All of these different heroes. First it was George Washington, then there was Alexander the Great, then it was Kit Carson, and Fremont, all the rest of them, and the other mountain man guy, Jedi Smith, the rest of them. And then when I got out of college, my attitude of heroes really changed. I really kind of came down to the idea of, your local community has all these heroes and heroines in them, that they do these little things, helping with kids get educated, helping with people take care of their everyday business, buying groceries, settling out their paperwork that they have to do. And I think those are really the heroes and the heroines of our culture, is these people who just do these every little things and they never really get any notice for them, except when they die usually. You say, well, this person did this, they did that, they did this, and all of a sudden you realize, my God, this person was so enriching to our community, and now they're gone. And I think that's really what I like about this poetry series in itself, but also all poetry in rural areas, is that it's a sense of bringing the community together to share our experiences and sharing what is good about what we do and what is bad about what we do. And I think that's really important, having that balance of both of those things. So, and I know it's very reflected in my poetry. It's also reflected in both Dan's work as well. So Dan Barth's been published. I was really, when I read this, I was just really jealous of this, because these are the places I sent stuff and never got published. So I was saying, well, how come I didn't get published? Ant Farm, Beat Scene, Dharma Beat, Jazz Times, Poetry Flash, Review of Contemporary Fiction, Western American Literature, Whole Earth Review, Wild Duck Review. As I tried to send all kinds of poems, why couldn't I get Wild Duck Review? I had to scrape it. Mallard. Too literal. Yeah, it's too literal, I guess. That's what I meant. But he has a couple of books here, Fast, Full, and Beautiful, Zen Beat Baseball Poems, which is probably, you have to think that, Dan Barth from Louisville, Kentucky, has to write baseball poems. Anybody know what the connection there is?
Louisville Sluggers.
There we go, the Louisville Slugger. Okay, there he is, Daniel Barth. Before I made a mistake here. Before we do this, we're going to change the reading order a little bit. They're going to read for 15 minutes, and then Dan Roberts is going to come and read, and then Dan Barth, and then Dan Roberts. So they're going to read for 30 minutes, but they're going to alternate every 15 minutes. So,
well, let's get this straight. It'll be Dan, then Dan.
Yeah, it's going to be Dan, and Dan, and Dan, and Dan. Okay. And, perhaps I should say something about Dan Roberts, since we're going to do that as well. Okay, I will. I'll just put the whole thing in here, then you won't have to worry about me anymore. Okay. So Dan Roberts is probably one of the oldest poet friends that I've had since I got into poetry, besides Will. I think I've known Will Staple and Dan Roberts probably as long as any poets in California. And Dan's just another one of those community heroes, because he does everything that he gives all his time to other people and to the arts in his community. He's works with the KZYX radio program, or radio station over in Philo, which is basically just a radio station and a general store. But it's a really beautiful place over in the Anderson Valley, if you've ever gone through the Anderson Valley, which used to be a big cattle and fruit orchards, and all of a sudden now it's all wine everywhere, just like it is almost here anymore. But he also does he had a Wild Sage poetry venue that he ran for about 10 years, and then he had also Wild Sage poetry on the radio station as well, which I got to read in a couple of times. And he started this thing which was called Youth Speaks in the town of Willits. in which he would get the high school kids to come up and they would speak out their issues, what their community, what's happening to them in the community, what they feel, what their emotions are, what their reasoning is, and what the ideas are about the community, what can help it, what's happening in there, which is incredible because the kids are, students. I've just been so blessed working with high school students because they're really blessed. And they tell you they're really right there, and they don't have all these disguises and all these runaround stories they're going to tell you to try to get what they want. They just come right out and tell you what it is, and they're very, very right in your face, and also very honest and very open, which I always admire. And so Dan's got books back there as well. He also has a music poetry program called Rhythm Running River, and he interviews poets from all over America and has them on his program as well. So he's really a cultural hero and a real icon in the Willits area. Willits would be much more drab without Dan. So I'm really happy he's here as well. So here we go. We're going to start with Dan Barth, and we're going to go to Dan Roberts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. We do a similar reading series in Ukiah, and Chris and Will have both been featured readers there, so it's nice to get over here and reciprocate and share my work with you guys and meet new people. And read some of my poems that everybody in Mendocino County has heard already. You guys haven't heard. I'll open with a couple of shorter poems and then move on to a longer one. And these first ones are from this book and sort of trace my path from Kentucky to Mendocino County. And this first one is called The Old Runner. The old distance runner eases out, settles into his pace, hears the creek flow, feels the wind blow, sees the sun shine, knows his right mind. He's old and slow, but he can still go. He stretches before and after. He drinks a lot of water. This is called Frank Among the Poets, for Frank and Leslie Roberts. He agrees to accompany his lovely, intelligent wife to the poetry reading for moral support. She is to read. He loves her. Maybe there won't be too many poems about death, despair, suicide, blood dripping from veins. Maybe not too many sensitive souls will drone on and on about their woebegone lives. He'll hang in there, Frank figures. It can't be that bad. And hey, anyway, his wife, his partner, the mother of his children, will be reading. He knows she's okay. And besides, Lord help him, he loves her. And this is a longer one, but I used to drive. I'll do about four or five sections of this poem. I used to drive. My dad was personnel manager for the Coca-Cola bottling company on Hill Street in Louisville in the 1960s and 70s. My brother and cousins and friends and I got summer and Christmas time jobs there in those days. I worked 5 summers and at least 4 Christmases. Summers were hot and humid. Winters were cold and bleak. It was not easy work, but I earned enough money to help pay my way to college, and I gotta admit, I learned a lot about Louisville and people and the workaday world. I used to drive Coke trucks on days like this, hot, muggy summer days in Kentucky. I would drive to country clubs with swimming pools where beautiful girls lay around in bikinis and middle-aged matrons slurped drinks, played bridge, played tennis, the thinner, more athletic ones. I used to drive River Road, Bardstown Road, Taylorsville Road, Beulah Church Road, Westport Road, LaGrange Road, and even Mockingbird Valley Road on hot, muggy summer days. I used to drive coke trucks to racetracks in Louisville. I drove to Miles Park, Louisville Downs, Churchill Downs, and carried 30-pound tanks of Coke Sprite Orange Tab to track kitchens, jockeys' quarters, bars, and concession stands. Arriving early, glancing at yesterday's losers' tossed away tickets, I'd do my job and leave. But yes, sometimes I did linger on the bricks in the shade at Churchill Downs and look up at the names of Derby winners and muse and wonder, plan and dream. I used to drive coke trucks to bars in Louisville. I started my route at 8 a.m. They had been open since 6. In the dim light, old men read newspapers, racing forms, drank coffee, beer, bourbon, muscatel over ice. Top of the morning. One old owner on Preston Street always paid me in ones. Usually it was $32. Counted out slowly into my palm. Then back in the truck, first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, through traffic to the next bar, dim light, old men, morning drink, racing form, life. Old men used to tell me things. One old guy told me how he literally fucked the shit out of his old lady. Oh, I was going at her and banging her good and hard. And when we finished, she rolled over and there was a little turd lying right there on the sheet. One old guy lamented, when I was young, I'd be so hard in the morning, I could stand and pee backwards over my head. Now I'm lucky if I don't dribble on my toes. And one old guy told me, my old lady ain't never had much problem with headaches, but yeast infections? Shit! I ain't never seen nothing so many things can go wrong with as a pussy. Oh, that's enough of that. And then, I was thinking about Ed Buren here and actually sent him an email to see if he was maybe coming tonight. We corresponded a few years back about hitchhiking. I used to do a lot of hitching and wrote a bit about hitching. And so this is 2 or 3 poems about traveling and hitching. This one's called Too Bad. Summer of 1974, just out of college, my friend Mike Planowski and I decided to hitchhike up through New England to eastern Canada. We had some good times and mostly good luck. We slept on the beach at Marblehead, Massachusetts, in an open field in New Hampshire, in a climber's shelter on Mount Washington. We hitched on up to Quebec, then west to Montreal. Our French wasn't great, but we got by. Stayed at youth hostels, met lots of people, saw the sights. In Montreal, a big gathering was going on. L'International Festival de Jeunesse Francophone, the International Festival of French-speaking youth. There were concerts, dances, poetry readings. We wandered, wondering, and eventually hitched out of Montreal. The festival still in swing. There were lots of people hitching, so we walked out of town a ways along the highway, trying to find a good spot to hitch. As we were doing this, 2 French girls approached us, pretty, appealing, long-haired in skirts, boots, peasant blouses, and denim jackets. One of the girls said something to us rapidly in French that I didn't catch, and Mike didn't either because he said, "I'm sorry, we don't speak French." "Ah," she said, "he's too bad for you." And they walked away, leaving us wondering what we had missed. And this one's called Very Cozy. There was a bar we used to hang out in Ostend, a dark, down-the-stairs cellar bistro with good beer. You could even get bread, cheese, a bowl of soup or noodles. Lots of young people hung out there, the international crowd. I knew a couple of friendly Scotsmen, some German guys and girls, some Swedes, a Greek, some Dutch, French, and Belgians. We'd talk, play guitars, and sing, just hang out. Wish I could remember the name of the place. My favorite beer was a Belgian ale, Duvel. One night I was talking to a nice local girl. She had some English and I a little French, so we did okay. Just a nice girl talking. And she said something to me I'll always remember. Really one of the highest compliments I've ever received. It made me feel so warm and comfortable. It still does. What she said was, "I think you are a very cozy person." "Thank you," I said. "I think you are a very cozy person too." And this one's called Clochard. Clochard is French for hobo or bum. Je suis seulement un clochard flottant comme un bouchon sur la mer. I'm only a hobo floating like a cork on the sea. This happened in southern France. Estagel, I believe it was. He was a little one-armed bum, un clochard, avec un chien. It was early morning in a cafe. He was knocking back a brandy. Chattanooga Choo Choo was on the radio. "Pardon me, boys, is that the Chattanooga Choo Choo?" "Yes, yes, track 29. He knocked back the brandy neat. He looked at me. He smiled and shrugged as if to say, "Ah, mon ami, we know the world. But anyway, salute. Here's to another day." So this April of this year I was in New Orleans. I hadn't been there for quite a while, since before Katrina, and I was really there at a pretty lucky time when the city had mostly recovered from Katrina and before the big oil spill happened. So this one's about New Orleans this spring and called New Orleans 2010. Flying in. That magical, musical, muddy, misty old Mississippi, moseying, meandering, on down to New Orleans. Wonderful, warm, brown water widening as it wanders down to the Gulf. Lush green vegetation caressed within the serpentine coils of the river. Ripples on the surface, barges in tow, all along the levee roads and people go. Pine trees rising out of swamps and greens like you've never seen. You can hear the gumbo sound. There's music all around. I can see the umbrellas, hear the rain, clock on the wall, old round thermometer on the wall, plates and trivets, candelabra, framed prints, old-fashioned wire or cooking accoutrements on the wall above the coffee pots, people talking, jazz music on the radio, bees and beads, beads and bees, beads and bees in the trees, pretty red-haired girl in long peasant skirt and black t-shirt carrying 2 cups of coffee back to the room in the morning. On the street, it keeps on happening like this. Up in the morning, among friends, cup of coffee, conversation, books, reading, out for a walk, all through the Vieux Carré. Walking, walking, the rhythm of the street, the people, all shapes and colors, white, black, brown, tan, olive-skinned girls in t-shirts, long dark hair or short kinky, breast bounce, nice ass in blue jeans on the sidewalk outside the Maple Leaf. Rebirth brass band, you bet. All the people shaking hands, embracing, shoulder bump. How you been? Well, look who it is. Old Benjamin himself. Oh, I forgot about that. Among the friendly sidewalk people in old raunchy, nongry New Orleans. By the river. Well, the music, the days, the nights, the neighborhoods. Faubourg Marigny, Faubourg Treme. Got to get me a Faubourg Marigny hat today. Or tomorrow after po' boy or muffaletta. Walking on the levee above the Mississippi. Rolling down, flowing down. Yes, rolling down, it's flowing down. Foaming, rippling down past New Orleans. Curving, snaking, raunching, taking, swamping, cutting. All along, all down to the Gulf to the Gulf of Mexico. And I'll do one more in this set and then bring Dan Roberts up here. This one is close to my heart. It's called The Old Horse Player for Paul White, and you'll hear about him in the poem. And he passed on about 2 weeks ago at age 93. So The Old Horse Player for Paul White takes its epigraph from Damon Runyon. All of life is 6 to 5 against. He doesn't go to the track much anymore. He's 87 years old, for Christ's sake. Yeah, they've got elevators now and those little golf carts that'll pick you up at your car. But that means extra tips. And then there's the drive, the cost of gas. With off-track betting and cable TV, there's really no need to go to the track. And anyway, as he likes to say, they wouldn't have those places if people won. Still, he buys his racing form every day. His son drives him to the corner store, and he places a few bets. What the hell, they're still running. There are some good young jockeys at Churchill Downs. He still knows a few trainers. Why not risk a few dollars? The old horse player spends a lot of time with his son. His son is 55 now. He drives the old man around. He and his sisters took away the old man's car keys a few years ago. He called a locksmith and had a new set made. They took those away too. So now he's resigned himself and his son drives him. They drive out River Road. That's where the Pine Room used to be, he tells his son. I remember the night it burned down. They drive out US 42 past some of the horse farms. There's still something about a yearling that makes his heart leap up. Back home, he calls a friend at OTB, bets $10 on a horse he likes in the third at Saratoga. Never bet on anything that can talk, he tells his son. Okay, Dad, I won't. If it rains, go to the movies. Thanks for the advice. Yeah, the old horse player has seen a lot. His wife died a year ago. He's been lonely since then. But he's hanging in there. He's got his kids and grandkids and church and the horses. He's making a novena at St. Leonard's, praying he'll live to 105. Why not? The odds are long, but they're still posted. Why not stick around and see what happens next? Maybe there will be another great horse like Sir Barton or Man of War or Secretariat. Maybe there will finally be another Triple Crown winner. He walks to the kitchen, pours an iced tea. His son comes in the back door. Drive me to the corner, will you? I need to buy the racing form. Thank you. Here's Dan Roberts.
Hold on a little bit. Well, bend down.
What strange pleasure do they get? Who'd wipe whole worlds out, anything to end our lives, our wild idleness. But we have charms against their rage. Must go on saying, look, if nobody tried to live this way, all the work of the world would be in vain. And now and then a son, a daughter hears it. Now and then a son, a daughter gets away. That was by Lou Welch, who I like to start my poetry classes off with in the high schools. Only at 50 did I stop worrying about being immature. It was a great relief. Now I fear overripeness, berries turning to wine on the vine. I have a couple of burger jokes. America, all this freedom fits like a tie-dye burqa. sewn in Indonesia from recycled flags made in China, and I kind of want to know why I gotta pay for it if it's free. The media is the burqa. Who's wearing the burqa now? On a mountain, there's a molehill. On a mountain that's a molehill lives a quack who knows how to duck. And I'm sure you all remember Mr. Bobbitt. So after 9/11 happened, I thought, well, there's this parallel here. So I wrote Babylon Bobbittized. Capitalism's twin erections, swollen hard with third world blood, gross spectacle of greed, America, the stud. She hated the lies, the beatings, the rape. She resized his prize, shortened it to the nape. John moved on to porn, America to war, thrusting shafts to prove victory over the whore. Judy Berry was a really good friend of mine. We worked a lot together in Earth First. You know about Judy Berry, right? Somewhat. She was bombed 20 years ago last April, so we just had the 20th anniversary of the bombing. And when she was dying, when she had about 2 months before she did die, we did a kind of a performance thing to raise money for her family. So I wrote a poem for the event called Give Charlie the Moon. Charlie is Charlie Hurwitz, who owned Maxam Corporation that took over a long-lasting logging company up in Humboldt County and went in, and basically that's why Headwaters got started, the whole Headwaters movement to save some redwood trees. So Charlie Hurwitz is Give Charlie the Moon is for Charlie Hurwitz. The poem is for Judy Berry. And, okay. I pledge resistance to the mask of the United States of somnambulism and to the corporations who are destroying the land. One nation, under grid, with liberal injustice for all. Oh, say, can you see? Man, can't you see manufactured mountains from sea to polluted sea? We cut, spray, hack, squirt, drag, burn, make extinct, and earn money. Money, money, money. So we can rent, lease, buy, distraction, while waiting for the guy who'll put it all back together. What if he don't come back? What if he liked those trees and salmon and spotted owl and pomo and yuki? What if he can't get any more? What if it took a few millennia to create? No problem. He'll find something. We treated him so special last time. What if just desserts? He just deserts us. It's just a desert. 40 days in the desert divided by 40 days and nights of rain equals one world on standby for the next available flight to the moon. What if we give Hurwitz the moon? We've got a flag and a car up there. Build him a waferboard mansion at the edge of the lake. A color Xerox so he can print up all the money and junk bonds he wants. A deluxe edition of the latest Monopoly game, leather bound, with all the get out of jail free cards removed. So let's all turn around and give Charlie the moon. What if the light inside everyone's head went on at the same time, and the fabric of standing deadwood, intact watershed, and dependent species were all known essential, more essential than all the money ever printed? I pledge allegiance to the earth first, and to her various stages of evolution, and to the four elements through which we stand, one planet whirling through space with liberty and justice for all species. Sometime in the mid-90s, a number of my friends started dying. And yeah, I missed them because several of them died in a short period of time. One died from a heroin overdose, one committed suicide, and one had a heart attack. And they were people that I lived in the same community with since the early 70s up in southern Humboldt. And so I started writing these letters, and they're called Letters from the Dead. And so this is maybe the fifth letter, and this is written by Bob Jansen, the guy who committed suicide. Telling the story of when Timothy Leary died and came over to the other side. Dear Dan, if time existed out here, the arrival of Dr. Tim would have been a week-long party. Thousands of Tibetan monks in tie-dyed robes milled about the entry portal, chanting, "Timothy Leary home, no, 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 he inside, looking out." Bill Graham built a stadium, kind of a cross between the LA Coliseum and Angkor Wat, with a massive stage. Jerry Garcia wove miles of guitar strings together into a huge Tibetan mandala that hovered over the stage. His guitar plays directly into it. Rod, this is Rod Deal, who was the guy who died from heroin overdose. He had a band called Rod Deal and the Ideals, a reggae band that was pretty well known up there. Rod transposed a 400-foot redwood tree onto the stage. When he plugs his guitar into the trunk, the needles not only vibrate to produce sound, but also send out laser lights, like fine spider webs, creating hologram images. Michael Ferretta was the guy who had a heart attack, who was a singer-songwriter up there. Michael Ferretta wrote a song for the occasion called "No More Dressing Up." The chorus goes, "Used to be a psychologist, flapping about, going to space. No more dressing up because I ain't got no body. Think I'll hang with the human race." You asked about getting high over here. At first we planned to take something for the doctor's arrival. We talked about Osley's purple beryl acid. Paul suggested hog and that honey hash oil connection that Tim had set up in Afghanistan. And Rod kept passing fatties of his baseball bat Khyber Maui cross. Well, you know how some people down there say you can get to those places without taking substances? Up here, you only get one real electron for a body. It's a really big electron. Down there, what people call a soul is just one electron at your very core. All that bone and muscle and skin grows around that one electron. Acid, weed, smack, and hog only affect all those other electrons clinging on to that soul. All those secondary electrons are particles of earth in transition, and they have memories, the ability to retain vibes and muscle reactions. Like Wilhelm Reich said, those substances can only affect the earth electrons. So to get high over here, you need to bring your body back, all those other electrons. Nobody wants to. As much fun as those electrons caused, they're heavy, dull, and gravitationally drawn to a ball spinning in space. Big limitation. Not many choose to go back to that form. So when Dr. Tim arrived, we were just high on thought forms. I replayed my acid trip where the entire universe was made up of trillions of interlocking starfish. It wasn't scary this time. Ron passed out burning coals of the kind, like fat incense sticks. Paul was being Pharaoh and held a little plastic spaceship that came out of a box of Cheerios in 1963. On the side of it, he painted Leary's statement, "Space migration is life extension squared." Michael stayed on stage and muttered, "G. Gordon Liddy won." There was a great cheer from the masses as Leary's electron merged with God. She comforted Tim and said, "Oh, Tim, we're so glad you didn't kill yourself on the internet. You'd have been stuck there till the holy virus arrives. And while that's planned, the time schedule is unclear." It was dreadful what they did to you in Vacaville, implanting all that space migration and cyber garbage into a consciousness that had set free so many other minds. And if the government had been crazy enough to give you the spaceship you wanted, well, thank goodness they didn't. The crowd shuddered and swooned. Garcia struck a chord, and it was as much a wave of heat as it was a sound vibration. It penetrated my entire electron. It seemed like I danced for hours before it faded. In fact, I can still feel it, weeks later in your time grid. Next, Ron got a rhythm riff going, and the redwood tree he was playing it through was swaying, and the laser lights were creating constantly evolving images of rock formations, plants, and animals. Now Paul, that is Pharaoh, was in the reception line. When Leary approached Pharaoh and saw the little plastic spaceship he was holding, an image formed of Dr. Leary, horn-rimmed Harvard professor, trying to eat Cheerios before class one day in 1963. He wore a blue blazer, but the real blaze was inside his head. He'd done 500 micrograms the night before, and when he pulled the little plastic spaceship out of the cereal box, a die was cast, so to speak. Further evidence that Paul's Pharaoh trip is too real. I really did see hieroglyphs coming out of his piano several times. In a sense, Pharaoh handed the customized little plastic spaceship to Leary. Relativity is not so simple when you get beyond gravity, but that's another letter. For a moment, Leary's electron shrunk, or maybe the plastic spaceship grew. After that, the celebration became inanimate. I've been back giving rides on the acceleration ramp. Ron took a ride today and said that Leary's deprogramming was more complex than most. Tim's ego, which he had tried so hard to melt with acid, had actually infiltrated his electron. Maybe Vacaville did that. Ron heard that when Leary's electron shrank, Tim was having a bad trip. He started saying things like, "Take me to your leader. Boot me up. My deflector shield is down. Fire the photon torpedoes." So the celebration was placed on pause. B.F. Skinner built an exact replica of Millbrook, complete with India paisley prints, lots of pillows, and sandalwood incense. Aldous Huxley, Herman Hesse, and George Orwell were summoned. Tim has been working his way through all this. When his electron is truly ego-free, rumor has it, he'll be putting together a talent show called Virtual Illusion. Ron says that Huxley has begun playing a stand-up bass. Hesse will play a shaker full of glass beads. Orwell's on the trap set. And Nixon and Leary will do lead guitars and vocal harmonies. More to come. Love, Bob.
Okay, here we go. We got your attention finally. So anyway, we're our first. We might sign up. Before we do this, so I'd like to say that we have two good newspapers back here: Poetry Flash, which is free, and then also the Redwood Coast Review, which is also free. I think, but you can also sign up for them and get them delivered to your door for a certain amount of money, I think about $15 or $25. Really good newspapers, incredible, they've got incredible writers from it. You know, Mendocino County is one of the really richest areas in California for writers, and so it's a really good chance to check out what they're thinking, what they're saying out there. And if you can, you know, go to Poetry Reads over there in Mendocino County. It's really good for you. It's a real good one. So check that out. Okay, first reader we have is Tiara.
Hello. Hello. The first poem I'm going to read is by Kim Adamizio, and it's called What Do Women Want? I want a red dress. I want it flimsy and cheap. I want it too tight. I want to wear it till somebody tears it off me. I want it sleeveless and backless, this dress, so nobody has to guess what's underneath. I want to walk down the street past thrifties in the hardware store, with all those keys glittering in the window, past Mr. and Mrs. Wong selling day-old donuts in their cafe, past the Guerra brothers slinging pigs from the truck and onto the dolly, hoisting the slick snouts over their shoulders. I want to walk like I'm the only woman on earth and I can have my pick. I want that red dress bad. I want it to confirm your worst fears about me, to show you how little I care about you or anything else except what I want. When I find it, I'll pull that garment from its hanger like I'm choosing a body to carry with me into this world, through the birth cries and the love cries too. And I'll wear it like bones, like skin. It'll be that goddamn dress they bury me in. And this is a poem that I wrote. It's called Coyote, Come and Sleep With Me. I dreamed that you and I caught constellations falling from the sky, beads of light shining in my palm, painted night, sleeping on the forest floor, owl feathers strung through watery hair, listening to you pluck softly the strings of my guitar like a ghost stroking air. Do you love the stars, you ask? Yes, I say, because I came from them. Thank you.
So, Tiara, you need to take some of this mugwort home with you. You know, to put it under your pillows so you can have some real loose racy dreams again. Next reader is Will.
Well, Chris liked this poem the last time I read it 7 or 8 years ago at a conference. He thought it was pretty funny. I hope you think it's humorous too. Prophecy. You know, this is what we got poets often. We're working up to be the prophet, I think. So anyway, prophecy. And this is from the book, The Only Way to Reduce Crime is to Make Fewer Acts Illegal. I'm not writing to be a martyr or to change a doomed empire. I do it so when things get more repressive, and they will, the poets will say, even though they got Staple, bless his soul for liberty, I too will speak out. The partisans, the outlaws, bent into the light of small campfires, carefully attentive, read his poems, back when there were trees in the mountains. They will be empowered in more dangerous times than these. They will die more hopelessly in more desperate times, and everyone else will believe what they see on TV. When someone in uniform kills someone, it's still murder. Staple said that back when folks could read. Wasn't Staple the one who said it's not the ones behind the bars who are the criminals, but those who put them there? He was the guy who dared to say the police were such scum. But I never called the police scum. My brother-in-law is hired to carry a gun. I said the character of the human male changes when in uniform, especially that group of scarred men who have been abused by the worst life has to offer them, been run over by people they threatened, act differently than decent, and get away with what they can to spree up a long, empty night with the incidental agony of someone they can completely control. And another little sweet light moment. Our need to punish. Is a sadomasochistic society where things are substituted for love? Privileged groups who require authority to seize more than their share undoubtedly oppose the simple life. Love dissolves the psychosocial foundation of authority. Without our fear, without our need to punish, ecstatic bliss. So don't brag what you're going to do after the breakdown to the cops, as if they were now the devils out of hell to be this year's demon to be tortured. A cop is just a human being with a clean record, 8 to 12 weeks of training, and a willingness to kill his fellow human beings. Even in a sadomasochistic society, love dissolves the foundation of authority. Without our fearful need to punish, wholehearted breath invigorates a wild, wide smile. Without the constriction of fear, feel love flow forth.
Okay, if you don't have your own poems to read, it's always nice to get to read somebody else's poem. It's really great when other people read other people's poems. It's also really good to memorize them as well, because it really gives you a whole new insight and a whole new feeling about what embodiment of that poem and what the really meanings are once you memorize it. It has a whole new sense of meaning from it. At least for me it has, and I know for other people have told me that too. So anyway, if you don't have your own poem, get somebody else's. Anyway, here's Marilyn who's going to read.
So, in 3 weeks exactly, my brother turns 21, and he's been calling me a lot lately, and he's been kind of struggling with some stuff, and this month marks 10 years since our mother passed away, and I wrote this today. She sleeps so hard I fear her. We take turns feeling sorry for ourselves 10 years later. She still sleeps her Ophidian sleep, her latex-filled syringe, sour last breath sleep. I am half of what I should have been. I am half of who you said I'd be. I am only half of me. And God damn it, she should have known better, because they don't know blood like I know blood. They don't remember open wounds. They don't remember bile. They can't fathom my fear of fluorescent lights. They will never respect that smell or embrace those colors, red and yellow, wounds hot and shallow, her face falling off into her half-skinned hands. You don't know blood like I know blood. Little brother wants to know why. Why? Why is Mommy gone? Why didn't she fight harder? Why are we still here, taking turns feeling sorry for ourselves? I say, little brother, I can't give you the answers you need. I can't even hold you when I want. But remember blood, brother. Don't ever forget blood. With ropes of sausage, tie me to your black Angus altar. Cover this flesh temple with thinly sliced deli meats. Remove each slice using only your teeth. Kiss me salty, greasy. Flog me with your beef jerky whip, you beautiful butcher man. Thank you.
Thanks, Marilyn. Yeah, it's always nice having a poem dedicated to you. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay.
You got a lot of other secret admirers. just the tip of the iceberg.
Great, good, I need them. Okay, next reader is Richard Gill.
Well, as they said a little while ago, on the 6th of October, over at the Brass Copper Top. I knew it was something I liked.
Silver Dollar Club.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to be over there with my show called Signs of Our Time. And the Signs of Our Time is a little different show because what I've done is I've taken several of my art forms and combined them into one, which includes poetry, storytelling, sculpture, and I have my good buddy Gianni Rome has written a score for what I have, the words that I've written, and he's really good. So I work with 3 sculptures on stage, big ones, pretty big, and the reason I wrote this is because, well, like many of you, I've had questions and thoughts about our world at this time. So I've taken my art forms and put them together for this show, and I cover several different subjects. And I want to do one of the poems from that series right now, and it's called The Truth. The truth. Oh, it's out there in many forms. The elusive, ever-changing truth. What is your truth? Now, Webster says, truth is conformity with a verified fact of reality. Well, what is real? And what is fact? There was a time when this world was flat. That was that. A common fact. But to our surprise, we suddenly found the world is round. Ah, the laws apply. You can't deny that in the sky, man can't fly. Can't you see? It just can't be. It's a reality. And then, all too soon, we're on the moon. Who has the truth? There's a belief that's held by all, that from our souls we heed a call of something bigger, greater, they say. And to that unseen force, we pray. Oh, many differ in their quest, yet each one is righteous from the rest. And so we battle, kill and maim, though our beliefs are much the same. Who has the truth? Prophets' words are true and clear. Love. Love thy neighbor. Have no fear. Yet man interprets for his greed, and many follow in their need. And so we kneel, sing, and pay, waiting for that judgment day. We close our eyes. We turn our backs. Refuse to see. Ignore the facts. As chaos threatens, can't you hear that voice? Oh, it's soft but clear. We have a choice. This Is that the truth? Thank you very much. I want to do another one because I only get a chance to do this one just a couple of times a year. And we're about 9 days, it'll be the anniversary of one of the worst tragedies we've had in this country, which is the 9/11. And when that all happened and we were all distressed over it, and what can we do? We're here, they're there. And so my way was just to observe, and I decided to write about it. And I call it The Day the Towers Fell. The smoke rose high in the clear blue sky. The day the towers fell. A tiny bell tolls for 3,000 souls. The day the towers fell. The maddening rush through the swirling dust. A day's relief turned to disbelief. A nation's grief. The day the towers fell. 10,000 feet pound the street, surging forth, heading north, the day the towers fell. Heroes all heed the call, up the stairs, through the door. And now they are the day the towers fell. Around the clock, they couldn't stop. Men like ants, a frenzied dance. The day the towers fell. And across the land, we lent a hand. We shed our tears. We quelled our fears. The day the towers fell. A world changed. Rearranged. Well, in our minds is a different time. Did it bring hate to seal our fate? Or could it bring love? The day the towers fell. When all was said and done, in the years to come, we will remember that day in September, the day the towers fell. The day the towers fell. The day the towers fell.
From birth to death, thousands of generations of human life on planet Earth. Yet, in only the latest generations have we and our children been subjected to thousands of chemicals in our soils and in our food. There is a relationship between nutrition and neurochemistry. Dr. John Taylor, known throughout the world as an authority on attention deficit disorder, now addresses this relationship in Nutrition and Neurochemistry, the ADD Link.
So our story starts with the brain neuron, the human brain neuron. The human brain neuron is the most sophisticated single cell on the face of the planet. These neurons are high horsepower engines. They demand huge quantities of fuel to operate, huge quantities of vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, enzymes, oxygen, water, blood sugar, and amino acids in order to work right. Each one of those neurons, those cells, nerve cells, is capable of conducting up to 500 simultaneous chemical reactions. And each one is attached to up to 1,000 other neurons in a three-dimensional web or net. Now you have 100 billion of these high horsepower engines up there in your brain. They need all kinds of nutrition to help them work right. The brain uses 1/4 of all the